To God be the glory.
Welcome back to class number 9, which is also lesson number 9 in our textbook. Now we've been gradually increasing our vocabulary, and I want to emphasize once again and underscore the importance of your staying up with these vocabulary words. Make sure that you do not continue to proceed through the lessons unaware of what these vocabulary words mean. Work on the vocabulary, make your flashcards, go back and back, learning these words, working on them, pronouncing them out loud. And once again, I want to underscore the importance of that. Saying these vocabulary words out loud will help you learn what these things mean. All right, we're on page 53, and now in lesson 9 we're going to be introduced to a new set of vocabulary words and also be introduced to how we make masculine and feminine plurals of these same words. And once again, it's kind of nice. We've already learned these words, but now we expand our understanding of these words by going with the feminine, both in the masculine, or the plural, both in the masculine and feminine. All right, let's look at this particular chart then on page 53. We begin with the word for uncle, which you've already learned is dode. Well, what if we want to say uncles? Dodim. Dodim. Now notice what we've done. We've added an I and an M on that. All right, the word for horse is sus. We've already learned that. We want to make it horses. Susim. We add an IM on the end of that. Long hierarch mem. All right, the word for song, we've learned that this word is shir. What if we want to say songs? Shirim. Shirim. All right, nation. It's a new word for us. Goy. That's how you would pronounce that. Goy. Well, nations, goyim. Goyim. The word for star is kokav. Kokav. Well, how about star in the plural? We want to say stars. Kokavim. Good, word that we've already learned. Tov. We want to say good, such as good men in plural, we'd say tovim. Tovim, adding the long hierarch mem on the end of that. All right, the word for bad is ra. We want to say bad plural, that'd be ra'im. Ra'im. Beautiful, we've already learned that that is yafeh. Well, beautiful in the plural is yafim. Yafim. All right, big, great, or large, gadol. That's another word that we've already learned. Well, if you want to say that in the plural, gedolim. Once again, adding the long hierarch mem on that. Small or little, we've already learned this word too. This is katan. We want to make this plural. We say ketana. Ketanim. And then old, such as in beans, that was zaken. Well, if we want to say it in the plural, zekinim. Zekinim. All right. Now that's a pretty good way of learning the masculine plural. Now let's drop down and talk about the feminine nouns and adjectives and how we make that plural. Now we added the IM onto the masculine. With the feminine, we're going to add the OS, or the kind of an OT, and it's going to be the holum tav. The holum tav. All right, so the word for ant, we've already learned, is doda, and the word for ants would be dodot. Dodot. Mare is the word susa. Mares would be susot. Lampstand is a word that we've learned. Menorah. Well, if we want to say lampstands, menorot. Menorot. Blessing, berakah. Blessings, berakot. Commandment, mitzvah. New word for us. Commandments mitzvot. Mitzvot. And there you have an excellent understanding of looking at the plural. Now on the top of the next page we're going to have some more, but before we look at that, we want to talk a little bit about what it is that we're looking at. Now when we get to the feminine, we're adding the holum and then the tav to the end, and so it has an ot ending. For example, you study in the Old Testament scriptures about the feminine god, the Ashtaroth, O-T-H. Well, the Ashtaroth and the Asherah, A-H, that's feminine singular, right? Asherah. Well, the Asheroth, O-T-H, that's the feminine ending, feminine plural ending of these various words. All right, so that's what we're doing with the feminine. With the masculine, it's an I am. So all of those words that you've looked at in the Hebrew scriptures that have been transliterated into English, such as the word for angels, cherubim, seraphim, you have that I am ending. That's just telling you that that's plural in Hebrew. I am is plural in Hebrew. O-T-H is feminine plural in Hebrew. All right, now let's continue going through this word list. The word for cow in the feminine is para, para. And to make it plural, if we want to say cows, parot. The word animal, behema, in the plural would be behemot. Kingdom, it would be malaka, malakot in the feminine plural. Good, tova, tovot in the feminine plural. The word for bad in feminine singular is ra'ah. The word bad in feminine plural is ra'ot. Beautiful in feminine singular is yafa. Beautiful in feminine plural, yafot. Big, great, and large in feminine singular is gedolah. Big, great, and large is gedolot in feminine plural. Small and little is ketna. And notice that we have the dagesh there, so that'd be repeated twice. Ketana. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but that noon does have a dagesh in it, so it'd be ketan na. And then small, little would be ketan ot on the other side. Once again, the noon has the dagesh in it. And then the last one, the feminine singular word for young, is se'irah. Se'irah. And to make it feminine plural, se'irot. Se'irot would be how that would be pronounced. All right, then dropping down, looking at these various nouns with adjectives. First of all, the masculine, black horses. All right, now think about this for a minute before we cross the screen and show what the answer to this would be. If you don't have a book, or if you have your book in front of you, don't look at it for a minute. Think about how would you translate black horses. All right, we want to make both the adjective and the noun agree in number and gender. All right, so if we understand that the word for black is a certain thing, and then the word for horse is a certain thing, then we just make that plural. All right, now let's go across and see how we've made this. Susim, shechorim, black horses. Susim, shechorim. All right, how about small trees? Small trees. Well, that would be etzim, chatanim, or ketanim, ketanim. And now notice what's happening here. Notice that the word for tree is etz, and the word for small or little is katan. And so we've added the the IM ending to both words. Again, once again, the adjective must agree in number and gender with the noun. So we have etzim, ke, tanim. Ke, tanim. All right, the good songs. Now we're adding a definite article to it. We're not just talking about a good songs. We're talking about the good songs. So here we have ha shirim, ha tovim. Ha shirim, ha tovim. All right, and then large stars, the large stars, excuse me, that would be ha kokavim, ha gedolim. All right, so we've added the definite article to both of those. All right, how about feminine words? Let's begin by talking about black mares. We were talking about black horses before. Well, black mares would be susot, she chorot. She chorot. And once again, I probably need to go past that sheen a little faster than I am, but just for the sake of getting your pronunciation right, we'll go a little slower. How about good commandments? All right, we want to say good commandments in the feminine plural. We'd say mitzvot, mitzvot, tovot, mitzvot, tovot. The beautiful lampstands. Once again, we have the definite article on this, the beautiful lampstands. And so before we scan, we think about adding to that, the definite article must go on both the noun and the adjective, and also with the one below that, the white cows. They have to put the definite article, hey, on both of those. All right, let's look at the beautiful lampstands. Hamenorot, Hayah, Vot. All right, the definite article is on both of those, and all of them end in the OTH or the OT ending of the feminine. And then the white cows. Here we have on the last one, the bottom, the answer to that. That'd be Ha Farot, Halevanot, Halvenot. All right, so what we see here and what we have a good example of are a number of rules that have to deal with this grammar. These are very, very basic things and really fairly simple things to look at and to understand. All right, what we've observed is that masculine nouns and adjectives generally form their plurals by adding the long hierarch mem to the singular. All right? And we'll talk about that, and I'll demonstrate it on the board in just a minute. The feminine nouns and adjectives generally form their plurals by dropping the commas hey. We just take the commas hey off. That means we're back to the masculine again. And then we add the feminine plural onto that masculine triliteral root, and then we're ready to go with the feminine plural. And then, as stated in Lesson 7 in our textbooks, the adjective always follows the noun and always agrees with the noun it qualifies. For example, a large horse would be sus gadol, horse, namely a large one. A large mare would be susa gedolah, a mare, namely a large one. Large horses would be susim gedolim, horses, namely large horses. Large mares would be susot gedolot. All right. Notice how even when you say it out loud, it agrees. And that's one of the things that's going to be very helpful to you as you begin studying these things and learning that they are to agree in number and gender. All right. Now, going back to page 55 and looking at the chart, we have irregular plural forms of the following nouns. Now, these are one of the things that always makes it a little bit difficult in studying language, but nevertheless, they are unique in their form, and so we must learn it with its unique characteristics. First is the masculine word singular for man. We've already learned this. This is ish. Now, we would think ishim would be the masculine plural, wouldn't we? Well, it's not. Anashim. Anashim is the masculine plural, meaning men. All right, word thing is davar, davar. In the plural, devarim, devarim. All right. People is but when we make it plural, we say mim. And once again, it's hard to see on the screen that mem right there in the middle does have a dagesh in it, but nevertheless, it's mim, mim. All right, let's look at the word for head. It's pronounced rosh, rosh. But if we want to say heads, or sometimes this word's translated leaders or chiefs, then we would say rashim, rashim. Day, the word yom. But if we want to say days, we don't say yomim, we say yamim, yamim. The word for house, we've already learned, is bait, bait. To make it plural, the word for house is batim, batim. The word for son, we've learned, is ben. Sons, banim. So we've dropped the serif and made it a comments underneath there, and that's one of the unique things that we're looking at. The word for father is Av. Remember Avraham, father. But fathers is Avot, Avot. Night, we've learned, is Lila. Well, nights, plural, is Leilot. Even though night is not a feminine word, it does in the plural take a feminine ending, and that's one of the unique, unusual things or irregular about this particular word, and you just have to familiarize yourself with that. All right, let's go down and look at 3 feminine words. First is the word woman. We know woman is the word isha, but if we want to say women, nashim. Nashim. And what you'd have to do is just have to learn these just like they're separate vocabulary words. The word for daughter is bat. Daughters, banot. Year, shana. Years, shanim. Now what's unusual about that? Well, it's got the masculine plural ending on it when you would have suspected that it would have had the feminine ending, since the word year is feminine. Shana, that's feminine. But in the plural, when you say years, then it's shanim, therefore you're making that plural. All right. The textbook does make a couple of other notes. There is another kind of plural known as the dual number for the double members of the body. Eyes, hands, feet, ears, and for other objects found in pairs, those things are generally treated as plural, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. All right. Also, another thing that's a little bit unique has to do with the gutturals that we were talking about earlier. Now, we mentioned that the weak letters are the gutturals. The aleph, the ayin, the hay, and the heth, and then also the resh is kind of a weak letter too, all have special characteristics. But what happens also with these particular letters is when you have a word that begins in one of these letters, not all of them, but in front of the aleph and the ayin, and also the resh, rather than have the normal designation for the definite article, the hay with a patak underneath it, now it's going to be strengthened. It's going to be a hay with a comets underneath it. And so we use the long vowel in place of the short vowel in order to compensate for the weakness of those letters which cannot take the dagesh, therefore they are not strong letters, and so we compensate by strengthening the definite article before that. All right, so you've got 3 letters that whenever you have the definite article before those letters, it's going to have the T, the long vowel comets. What are those 3 letters? Aleph, ayin, and resh. All right? Now, there are important points to remember in this lesson are the following. First of all, remember that the masculine nouns and adjectives generally form their plural by adding the long hierarch mem, the im, to their singular. All right? The plural forms of the feminine nouns and adjectives generally end in the holum tav, an ot ending, or an oth. The adjective always follows the noun and agrees with it in gender and number. For example, a big horse is said in Hebrew a horse, namely a big one, and so on. Also note that the definite article before words beginning with aleph and ayin and resh take the hey with a comets underneath it. And these things with practice will not form any difficulty. And also we've learned some peculiar forms of some of these words, and it's almost like learning a totally new vocabulary word. And it should be studied that way. Go ahead and put these things in your vocabulary lists as separate words all by themselves. So you've got the word for men, you have that word, the word for man, ish, and then you have anashim in a completely different, on a different card, and that's told you that you're learning this particular word differently from the word for man. All right, now let's go to the exercises and look at some of the things that is being asked of us to do here. And we'll go to the chalkboard and talk about some of these things that it's asked us to do. Once again, I'll do the odd numbers with you, and of course you'll need to go and do those odd numbers on your own. All right, the first thing that they want us to do is they want us to write the plural of the following words. All right, first we have sus gadol, a great horse. So let's say we want to say great horses. Susim. Here we add the long hierarch mem to this. And then we want to say great, so we have the word gadol, but we want to make it plural. So we'd say gay dolim. All right? Gay dolim, and that would have the dagesh because it's one of our begad kafat letters. All right, sim gay dolim. All right, number 3, they have the good ant. They want us to make it good ants. So we have our definite article onto that. Add the feminine plural ending to that. Ha dodot. Now we want to make them good here. It's good to have good ants, isn't it? Do to vote. Ha. And remember, it takes the dagesh after it. Ha to vote. All right. Number 5.